My hand shook as I stared at the empty patch of dirt where my grandpa's water tanks used to stand. Those rusted, heavy tanks weren't just metal. They held the last piece of him, a World War II veteran who fought for this land, who lost every friend in the war, who built this ranch with his bare hands. I was 12 when he taught me how to clean them, his gravelly voice saying, "Water's life, Tommy. Guard it." Now at 45, I stood on his Wyoming ranch, heart pounding, as the HOA's yellow notice flapped on my gate, claiming they'd relocated the tanks for community safety. They didn't know I'd make them regret ever stepping on my land. It was a chilly October morning, the kind where frost clung to the grass and the air smelled of pine. I'd been up since dawn, checking the irrigation lines that kept my cattle alive. The ranch wasn't big, just 40 acres, but it was mine, passed down from Grandpa Joe, who'd earned it after surviving Normandy. He'd always said the tanks, 3 massive steel ones from the 1940s, were his pride, hauled from a scrapped army base to store water for dry summers. I was tightening a valve when I heard the crunch of tires. Not my truck, not my neighbor's either. It was a low, unfamiliar rumble, like a machine that didn't belong. I dropped the wrench and jogged toward the south fence, boots sinking into the mud. My gut twisted. Something was wrong. When I reached the clearing, I froze. 2 men in orange vests were chaining my tanks to a flatbed truck. A third guy, clipboard in hand, waved a paper like it gave him the right to steal. A shiny HOA logo was plastered on their van, and a sign reading "Property Compliance" hung on my fence. My land wasn't under their rules. Never had been. It was private, marked with "No Trespass" signs Grandpa had nailed up himself. I shouted, my voice cracking the morning quiet. The clipboard guy turned, smirking like he'd heard it all before. "HOA orders," he said, tossing me the yellow notice. It had a signature, Linda Harper, HOA president. No warning, no call, just a claim they needed the tanks for fire hazard prevention. I told him they were trespassing. He laughed, pointing to his badge, "Some cheap security patch." "Take it up with Linda," he said. My blood boiled, but I didn't move. Not yet. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The truck, the chains, the men joking as they yanked the tanks free. One tank groaned, metal scraping metal. And I swear I heard Grandpa's voice in my head, telling me to fight. I was a kid again, watching him polish those tanks, his dog tags clinking, his eyes far away. A flash of memory hit, 1944 Normandy. Grandpa's story of his squad pinned down, bullets tearing through his friends. He was the only one left, crawling through blood-soaked sand to safety. He'd built this ranch to forget that pain, and those tanks were his anchor. I blinked back tears, gripping my phone tighter. The men didn't notice. They loaded the last tank and drove off, dust clouding the air. I stood there, alone, the notice crumpled in my fist. Linda Harper thought she could steal from me, from Grandpa's legacy. She didn't know who I was, or what I'd become after years of fighting battles she'd never understand. I walked back to the house, the cold biting my skin. Inside, I spread the notice on the kitchen table, staring at Linda's signature. I hadn't met her, but I'd heard stories. She ruled the nearby HOA like a queen, fining people for overgrown lawns, bullying neighbors into compliance. My ranch was outside her zone, but she'd crossed a line. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. County records showed my land was exempt from HOA rules, just as Grandpa had ensured. But Linda had filed 3 complaints against me in the past year, claiming my tanks were unsightly. She'd never contacted me. This was personal. I called my buddy Mike, a local deputy. He sighed when I told him. "Linda's untouchable," he said. "She's got friends in the county." I didn't care. I asked him to log a trespassing report. He promised to try, but his tone said it wouldn't go far. I hung up, my mind racing. I wasn't just Tommy, the rancher. I'd been appointed to the Wyoming Land Use Council 6 months ago, a role I'd kept quiet. Linda didn't know she'd picked a fight with someone who could rewrite the rules she hid behind. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Grandpa's old army had hung on the wall, faded but proud. I could almost hear him, whispering through the years, "Don't let him take what's yours, Tommy." I wouldn't. This wasn't just about tanks. It was about legacy, about every scar Grandpa carried from the war, about the friends he buried. Linda had started a war she couldn't win, and I was ready to fight back. The next morning, I woke up with a fire in my chest. Linda Harper's yellow notice was still on my kitchen table, mocking me. I wasn't sleeping much, not with Grandpa's empty tanks haunting my dreams. I kept seeing him, young and scared in Normandy, his buddies screaming as bullets ripped through them. He'd told me that story once, his voice breaking, saying he was the only one who made it out. Those tanks were his way of holding onto something solid after losing everything. I wasn't letting Linda steal that. I grabbed my coffee and headed to the barn, where I kept Grandpa's old files. Dust covered the boxes, but I found what I needed. A 1946 deed proving the tanks were part of the ranch's water rights. Linda's fire hazard excuse was garbage. I took photos of the deed and emailed them to Sarah, a friend at the county clerk's office. She replied fast, "Tommy, this is airtight. Linda's got no claim." That was my first weapon. I drove to the HOA office, a fancy building with glass doors and fake plants. Linda wasn't there, but her assistant, a nervous guy named Greg, was. He flinched when I slapped the notice on his desk. "Where are my tanks?" I asked. Greg stammered, pushing up his glasses. Linda said they're in storage. For safety." I leaned in, voice low. "Tell her I want them back. Today." He nodded, but his eyes said he was scared of her. I left, knowing Linda wouldn't budge. Back at the ranch, I walked the fence line, checking for more HOA nonsense. That's when I saw it, a new sign nailed to my gate overnight. HOA Compliance Zone. It read, with Linda's name at the bottom. My stomach dropped. She was trying to claim my land now. I ripped it down, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about tanks anymore. She wanted control. I called Mike again. He showed up an hour later, his deputy badge glinting in the sun. "Tommy, I filed the trespassing report," he said, "but Linda's got a lawyer. Says the tanks were on disputed land." Disputed? My family had owned this ranch for 80 years. I showed him the deed. Mike frowned. "She's playing dirty. I heard she's got a cousin on the county board." That was a twist I didn't expect. Linda wasn't just a bully. She had connections. I wasn't backing down, though. I remembered Grandpa's voice, steady even after the war. "Fight smart, Tommy, not loud." I started recording again. This time the gate, the torn sign, the tire tracks from the HOA truck. Evidence was piling up. That afternoon, I got a call from my neighbor, Emma, a widow who'd known Grandpa. "Tommy, they came to my place too," she said, her voice shaky. "Took my irrigation pump. Said it was non-compliant." I clenched my fist. Linda was targeting everyone. Emma sent me photos of her pump, now gone, and a notice with Linda's signature. I told her to keep everything. We were building a case. That night, I sat in the kitchen, staring at Grandpa's army hat. Another memory hit, him laughing as he taught me to fish, then going quiet when a plane flew overhead. "Lost too many to those sounds," he'd said. His pain was in every inch of this ranch, and Linda was spitting on it. I couldn't let her win. I dug deeper online, finding a forum where locals complained about Linda. One post stopped me cold. She fined my dad $500 for a broken fence, then sent workers to fix it. They tore it down. The user, Jake, lived nearby. I messaged him, and he called back in minutes. "Linda's been doing this for years," he said. "She picks on old folks, people who won't fight back." Jake had saved emails from Linda, threatening fines unless he paid for upgrades. I asked him to send them. He did, along with a photo of his dad's ruined fence. This was a pattern. Linda wasn't just greedy. She was a predator. I leaned back, my mind racing. My counsel role gave me power, but I needed more. I called Sarah again. "Can you check Linda's HOA filings?" I asked. She hesitated. "Tommy, that's tricky. Her cousin's on the board." I pushed. "Just look." She sighed, but agreed. An hour later, she texted. "Found something. Linda's filed fake permits for 6 properties. Yours is one." My heart raced. This was big. Linda wasn't just stealing. She was forging documents. I saved the text, another piece of my arsenal. As I closed my laptop, I heard a noise outside. A low rumble, like the HOA truck again. I grabbed my flashlight and ran out, heart pounding. The night was dark, but I saw fresh tire tracks near the barn. Someone had been here. Linda was watching me, and she wasn't done. The tire tracks outside my barn kept me up all night. I stood by the window, gripping Grandpa's old army knife, listening for any sound. Linda was playing games, and I wasn't just fighting for tanks anymore. This was war. By morning, my eyes burned, but my resolve was stronger. I checked the tracks again. They led to a broken fence post, and a new HOA notice was stapled there, claiming my barn was unsafe. Linda's signature was scrawled at the bottom. She was coming for everything Grandpa built. I tore the notice down, my hands shaking. I remembered Grandpa's voice, weak near the end, saying, "This ranch is your fight now, Tommy." I wasn't letting him down. I called Emma, the neighbor whose pump was stolen. "They hit my place again," I said. She gasped. "Tommy, I found a camera hidden in my yard. HOA's watching me too." A camera? That was a new twist. Linda wasn't just bold, she was paranoid. Emma sent me a photo of the tiny device, tucked in her rose bushes. I told her to keep it safe. We needed every scrap of proof. I drove to Jake's place, the guy from the forum. He was a mechanic, mid-30s, with a scruffy beard and tired eyes. His dad's fence was still a mess, boards scattered like bones. "Linda's untouchable," he said, kicking a nail. "Her cousins got the county wrapped up." I showed him the fake permit Sarah found. His eyes widened. "She's been forging stuff for years?" I nodded. "Help me, Jake. We can stop her." He hesitated, then agreed. He had a friend, Nate, who worked at the HOA storage yard. "Nate might know where your tanks are," Jake said. That was my next lead. I met Nate at a diner that evening. He was jumpy, sipping coffee like it was his lifeline. "I saw your tanks," he whispered. "They're not in storage. Linda's got them at her brother's construction site." My jaw tightened. She wasn't just stealing, she was profiting. Nate slid me a blurry photo of the tanks, parked behind a bulldozer. "Be careful," he said. "Linda's brother Carl is bad news." Another twist. Linda had family in on this. I thanked Nate and left, my mind spinning. Back home, I spread out my evidence. The deed, Emma's camera photo, Jake's emails, Nate's picture, Sarah's permit info. It was a puzzle, and I was close to cracking it. But Linda was steps ahead, watching us. I needed to hit back. I remembered Grandpa's war stories, his squad trapped in a ditch, enemies closing in. He'd outsmarted them by staying calm, using their own traps against them. I'd do the same. I called a lawyer, Rachel, who'd help Grandpa with land disputes. She was sharp, no nonsense. "This is fraud," she said, reading Sarah's text about the permits. "But Linda's cousin on the county board complicates things." I told her about my counsel role. She paused. "Tommy, you've got leverage. Use it." I hung up, feeling a spark of hope. That night, I walked the ranch, flashlight in hand. The air was heavy, like a storm was coming. I stopped by the oak tree where Grandpa used to sit, telling me about his friends, Jimmy, who took a bullet for him, Eddie, who never made it off the beach. Their faces haunted me, their sacrifice in every bolt of those tanks. I swore I'd get them back. The next morning, I got a text from Mike, the deputy. "HOA's planning an inspection of your barn tomorrow. Linda's pushing for demolition." My heart sank. She was trying to erase my ranch piece by piece. I called Jake and Emma. "We need to move fast," I said. Jake had an idea. Nate could sneak us into the storage yard to get more proof. It was risky, but I agreed. That afternoon, I met Sarah at the county office. She handed me a folder. "Linda's filed 12 fake permits, Tommy. She's been stealing land for years." I flipped through the pages, stunned. One permit listed my ranch as HOA property. She wasn't just after tanks, she wanted my home. I thanked Sarah, my mind racing. As I drove back, I saw a black SUV parked near my gate. The driver sped off when I got close. I didn't need to see the face. It was Carl, Linda's brother. He was watching me now, too. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. Linda thought she could scare me off, But she didn't know I'd fought bigger battles. Grandpa's blood ran through me, and I was ready to turn her game against her. The black SUV speeding away from my gate left a chill in my bones. Linda and her brother Carl were circling like vultures, and I knew they'd strike again. I spent the morning checking my barn, making sure it was solid. Grandpa had built it with his own hands, every nail a piece of his heart. I wasn't letting Linda tear it down. Her inspection was tomorrow, and I had to be ready. I called Jake. "We're hitting the storage yard tonight," I said. He didn't hesitate. "Nate's in. Meet us at 10. My pulse raced. This was dangerous, but I needed proof. I spent the day gathering more evidence. Emma sent me a video from her security camera, showing an HOA van near her place at midnight. The driver looked like Carl. I saved it, another nail in Linda's coffin. Rachel, my lawyer, called. "Tommy, I checked the permits," she said. "Linda's cousin, Paul, approved them without a vote. That's illegal." My jaw tightened. Paul was her shield, but I'd break it. I told Rachel about my counsel role. "Perfect," she said. "You can call an emergency meeting." I started planning. That evening, I met Jake and Nate at the diner. Nate was sweating, his voice low. "Carl's got the tanks guarded," he said. "But I know a back gate." I nodded, my stomach twisting. We drove to the storage yard, a dark lot surrounded by chain-link fences. Nate cut the lock, and we slipped inside. The tanks were there under a tarp, but something else caught my eye, a stack of HOA notices, all fake, with my ranch listed as acquired. Linda was forging my land's title. My blood ran cold. Jake whispered, "We gotta go." But then headlights flashed. Carl's SUV screeched into the lot. We ducked behind a crate, hearts pounding. Carl yelled, "Who's there?" His voice was rough, like he'd been drinking. Nate froze, but I grabbed his arm. "Stay low," I hissed. Carl didn't see us, but he called someone Linda. "They're snooping," he said. "Fix it." She replied, "Handle it, Carl. Or I'll tell Paul." I recorded every word. We slipped out as Carl turned away, my hands shaking, but my resolve iron. Back home, I watched the recording. Linda's voice was sharp, commanding. She wasn't just a bully, she was running a scam. I emailed the video to Rachel. "This is gold," she said. "File it with the county tomorrow." I barely slept, my mind replaying Grandpa's war stories. He told me about a night in France, hiding in a barn as Nazis searched nearby. His friend Jimmy whispered, "Stay still, Joe," before a bullet took him. Grandpa survived by outsmarting them. I'd do the same. The next morning, the HOA inspection team arrived. Linda wasn't there, but Greg, her assistant, led them. He looked nervous, holding a clipboard. "We're checking for violations," he said. I let them in, my phone recording. The team found nothing wrong, but Greg handed me a new notice, $10,000 fine for unpermitted structures. I laughed cold. "Tell Linda she's done." Greg blinked. "She's got the county behind her," he said. I leaned in. Not for long. After they left, I called Sarah. "Set up an emergency council meeting," I said. "Tomorrow." She hesitated. "Paul's gonna fight this." I didn't care. I had evidence, and my council seat gave me power. That afternoon, Emma called, crying. "They cut my water line, Tommy. Said it was unsafe." I clenched my fist. Linda was hitting everyone. I told Emma to document it. As I hung up, I saw a shadow by my barn. Someone had spray-painted HOA property on the wall. Carl's work, no doubt. I took a photo, my anger burning. Linda thought she could break me, but she didn't know I was building a case that would bury her. Tomorrow, I'd face her cousin Paul, and the real fight would begin. The spray paint on my barn, HOA property, burned into my eyes as I stood there, flashlight shaking. Linda and Carl were tightening the noose, but I was done playing defense. The council meeting was tomorrow, and I'd make sure Paul, Linda's cousin, couldn't save her. I spent the morning organizing my evidence. The fake permits, Carl's recorded call, Emma's camera photo, Jake's emails, Nate's tank picture. It was a mountain, and I was ready to bury Linda with it. I called Rachel, my lawyer. "Everything's set," she said. "But Paul's pushing back. Says you're biased." I smirked. Let him try. My council role gave me a voice, and I wasn't staying quiet. I drove to Emma's place to check on her. Her yard was a mess, pipes torn up, dirt everywhere. She hugged me, tears in her eyes. "They're monsters," she said. I promised her we'd win. She handed me a USB drive. "Found this in the camera footage," she said. "It's Carl meeting Linda at night." My heart raced. Another twist. She was planning this all along. Back home, I watched the footage. Linda's voice was clear, talking to Carl behind Emma's barn. "Tommy's trouble," she said. "Make him sell." Carl laughed. "I'll scare him good." I saved the video, my hand steady now. Grandpa's words echoed. "Fight smart, Tommy." I remembered him in 1944, crawling through mud, his friend Eddie's body beside him. He'd outwitted death then. I'd outwit Linda now. That afternoon, Jake called. "Nate got fired," he said. "Linda found out he helped us." I cursed under my breath. Nate was our inside man, and now he was gone. "Is he safe?" I asked. Jake paused. "He's scared." Carl threatened him. This was getting uglier. I told Jake to check on Nate. I couldn't lose more allies. As I hung up, Mike, the deputy, pulled into my driveway. "Got bad news," he said. "Linda's filed a lien on your ranch. Claims you owe $20,000 in fines." My stomach dropped. "A lien?" She was trying to force me out. I showed Mike the footage of Linda and Carl. His eyes narrowed. "This changes things," he said. "I'll push the trespassing case." I nodded, but I knew the real fight was at the council. That night, I walked the ranch, the air cold and sharp. I stopped by the empty tank patch, my chest tight. Grandpa's face flashed in my mind, smiling as he cleaned those tanks, his dog tags glinting. "They took everything from me in the war," he'd said. "Not this ranch." I wouldn't let Linda take it either. The next morning, I dressed in a clean shirt and drove to the county office. The council room was packed, locals, reporters, even Emma and Jake in the back. Paul sat at the head, his face smug. Linda wasn't there, but her presence hung heavy. I laid out my binder. Permits, videos, photos. "Linda's forging documents," I said, voice calm. "She stole my tanks, Emma's pump, Jake's fence. She's a fraud." Paul scoffed. "You're out of line, Tommy." But Sarah, my clerk friend, stood up. "I've got records," she said, holding a file. "Linda's permits are fake. Paul signed them without review." The room gasped. Paul's face went white. This was the twist I needed, his own corruption exposed. I played the Linda Carl video. Her voice filled the room, plotting against me. People whispered, shocked. Paul slammed his gavel. "Enough," he yelled. But it was too late. The council voted to suspend Linda's HOA powers and investigate Paul. I left the room, my heart pounding. Outside, Emma hugged me. "You did it," she said. But I knew Linda wouldn't stop. As I drove home, I saw Carl's SUV tailing me. He flashed his lights, a warning. I gripped the wheel, ready for whatever came next. Carl's SUV tailing me sent a shiver down my spine. His headlights flashed like a predator's eyes, but I kept my cool, driving steady. Linda's empire was cracking, but she was fighting dirty. I pulled into my ranch, watching Carl speed off. My phone buzzed, Rachel, my lawyer. "Tommy, the council's investigation is moving fast," she said. "Paul's suspended too. Linda's losing it." I smirked. Good. But I knew she'd hit back harder. I checked my barn, the spray paint still glaring. I took more photos, adding to my evidence pile. Emma called, her voice shaky. "Tommy, they slashed my tires last night." My fist clenched. "Carl's work. Document it," I told her. "We're close." I hung up, my mind racing. Grandpa's voice echoed, "Stay sharp, Tommy." I saw him in Normandy, his squad gone, hiding in a ditch as tanks rolled by. He'd survived by thinking 3 steps ahead. I'd do the same. I met Jake at his shop. He was pissed. "Nate's hiding," he said. "Carl threatened his family." I cursed. Linda was turning this personal. Jake handed me a USB. "Nate got this before he left," he said. It was HOA financial records, showing Linda funneled money to Carl's construction company. My jaw dropped. This wasn't just theft, it was racket. I sent the records to Rachel. "This'll sink her," she said. "File it with the sheriff." I called Mike, the deputy. "Check these records," I said. He whistled. "Tommy, this is big. I'm opening a fraud case." I felt a spark of hope, but it didn't last. That afternoon, I found a new notice nailed to my gate, a foreclosure warning. Linda had doubled the lien to $50,000, claiming I'd missed payments. My heart sank. She was trying to steal my ranch legally. I called Rachel. "It's fake," she said. "We'll fight it." But time was tight. I needed a knockout blow. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or you're next." Carl. I saved it, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared, I was ready. I remembered Grandpa's last days, his hand weak, but his eyes fierce. "This land's your blood, Tommy," he'd said. I wouldn't let it go. I drove to the county office, meeting Sarah. She looked nervous. "Tommy, I found something else," she said, handing me a photo. It was Linda and Paul at a land auction, smiling. "They've been buying up ranches," she said. "Yours is next." My stomach twisted. This was bigger than I thought, a land grab. I thanked Sarah and left, my mind spinning. Back home, I spread out the evidence, videos, records, photos. It was enough to bury Linda, but I needed the right moment. I called a council ally, Lisa, who hated Paul. "Can you push for a public hearing?" I asked. She agreed. "Tomorrow," she said. "Bring everything." I barely slept, my dreams filled with Grandpa's war, his friend Jimmy's scream, the blood in the sand. I woke up sweating, ready for battle. The next morning, I got a call from Mike. "We raided Carl's site," he said. "Found your tanks, and stolen equipment from 5 other ranches." My heart leaped. The tanks were back, but the fight wasn't over. As I hung up, I heard a crash outside. I ran to the porch, flashlight in hand. My gate was smashed, tire tracks fresh in the dirt. Carl had been here again. I took photos, my anger white-hot. The hearing was hours away, and Linda was desperate. She thought she could scare me off, but she didn't know I was about to turn her world upside down. The smashed gate was a punch to the gut, but it lit a fire in me. Linda and Carl were desperate, and the public hearing was my chance to end them. I spent the morning gathering my evidence, videos, photos, fake permits, financial records. The tanks were back, thanks to Mike's raid. But this wasn't just about metal. It was about Grandpa's legacy, his sacrifice in World War II, his friends who never came home. I wasn't letting Linda steal that. I called Emma. "You coming to the hearing?" I asked. Her voice was firm. "Wouldn't miss it." Jake was in too, and Nate, despite Carl's threats, promised to show up. My team was ready. I drove to the county office, my binder heavy in my hands. The room was packed, locals, reporters, even a TV crew. Lisa, my council ally, gave me a nod. Paul was there, red-faced, but Linda walked in like she owned the place, her suit crisp, her smile fake. She didn't look at me, but I felt her glare. The hearing started, and Lisa called me first. I laid out everything. The forged permits, the stolen tanks, Emma's tires, Jake's fence. I played the video of Linda and Carl plotting. Her voice echoed, cold and clear, "Make him sell." The crowd gasped. Linda's smile vanished. Paul tried to interrupt. "This is a personal attack," he shouted. But Lisa shut him down. "Let him finish." I showed the financial records, proving Linda funneled HOA money to Carl. Then came the twist. Nate stood up, holding a USB. "I worked for Linda," he said, voice shaking. "She told me to forge the lien on Tommy's ranch." The room exploded in whispers. Linda's face went pale. I hadn't known Nate had that. It was a dagger to her heart. Rachel, my lawyer, stepped forward. "This is fraud and theft," she said, handing the USB to Lisa. Paul slammed his fist, but nobody listened. The crowd was with me. I remembered Grandpa, hiding in a French village, his friend Eddie's blood on his hands. He told me, "Truth wins, Tommy, if you hold on." I was holding on. Linda took the stand, her voice shaky. "It's a misunderstanding," she said. "I was protecting the community." Someone booed. I played another clip, her laughing with Carl about scaring me. The crowd turned on her. Lisa called for a vote. The council stripped Linda's HOA powers and ordered a criminal investigation. Paul was removed too, his corruption exposed. Linda stood frozen, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. I felt no joy, just a quiet strength. As the hearing ended, Mike approached. "We're arresting Carl tonight," he said. "Found your gate's debris in his truck." Another twist. Carl's sloppiness was his downfall. I nodded, my chest tight. Outside, Emma and Jake hugged me. "You did it," Jake said. But I wasn't done. I drove home, the tanks back in their place, rusted but proud. I touched one, feeling Grandpa's hands on it. That night, I got a call from Rachel. "The state's investigating Linda's land grabs," she said. "Your ranch is safe." I exhaled, relief washing over me. But as I hung up, I heard a noise, a low rumble near the barn. I grabbed my flashlight, heart pounding. The ranch was quiet, but a new note was nailed to the tank. "You'll pay." No signature, but I knew it was Linda. She was down but not out. I took a photo, my resolve hardening. The fight wasn't over, and I was ready for her next move. The note on my tank, "You'll pay," felt like Linda's last scream, but I wasn't scared. She'd lost her power, her cousin, her brother. I stood by the tanks, their rusted sides glowing under the moonlight, and thought of Grandpa. He'd fought bigger battles in World War II, lost his friends, and still built this ranch. I'd fought for him, and I wasn't done. The next morning, Mike called. "Carl's in jail," he said. "Confessed to the vandalism. Named Linda as the mastermind." My heart leaped. Another twist, she was cornered. I drove to the sheriff's office, where Rachel met me. "Linda's facing fraud charges," she said. "The state's seizing her assets." I nodded, but my mind was on the ranch. Back home, I found a package by the gate. Inside was a letter from Nate, who'd moved away. "Tommy, I kept this for you," it read. Tucked inside was a photo of Grandpa, young in his army uniform, standing by the tanks when they were new. My throat tightened. I saw him in Normandy, his squad falling, Jimmy's last breath in the sand. He'd carried that pain, but these tanks gave him hope. I pinned the photo in the barn, a reminder of why I fought. That afternoon, Emma and Jake came over. "The HOA's holding elections," Jake said. "Linda's gone for good." Emma smiled. "They found my pump too." We laughed, the weight lifting. But then Mike pulled up, his face grim. "Linda's missing," he said. "Skipped town last night." My stomach twisted. She'd run, but not far. I knew she'd left that note. I checked my security cameras and found a clip, Linda sneaking by the tanks at 2 a.m., her face pale, but angry. I sent it to Mike. "Find her," I said. He nodded. That evening, I walked the ranch, the air cool and quiet. The tanks stood tall, like Grandpa's spirit. I remembered his voice, "Hold the line, Tommy." I'd held it. The state cleared the lien on my ranch, and the council offered me a permanent seat. I accepted, knowing I could stop other Lindas. A week later, Mike called. "We got her," he said, "hiding at Carl's cabin." Linda faced years in prison, fraud, theft, conspiracy. Her name was poison now, her photo in the news, a warning to every HOA. I didn't cheer. I just felt peace. One morning, I saw a calf by the tanks, born from Grandpa's old herd. It nuzzled the metal, strong like him. I named it Joe, after the man who taught me to fight. Kids from town started visiting, helping with chores, listening to stories about Grandpa's courage. I told them how he survived the war, how he built this ranch for them. The moral was clear. Truth and heart can beat any bully, no matter how powerful. Stand firm, fight smart, and never let anyone steal your legacy. As I watched the sunset, the calf by my side, I felt Grandpa's hand on my shoulder. The tanks gleamed, and the ranch was mine again, forever.